walk through something that just happened. My phone is, of course, blown up. I stopped doing lives because it's just a group of friends on here, and it doesn't do much for my business. So it's a lot of exposure of me for not much return on the energy. And I I obviously don't make my living as a provocateur, and I don't make my living in a large congregation, and I don't make my living in politics. I got very close, just right up to the edge of it, and I decided that the juice was not worth the squeeze. So I've done a lot of stuff to try and talk about things that matter to me, talk about things that I think matter to people like me, and talk about things that matter to all of us, even people not like me. And, I had had my share of threats and cancel culture. I went through all of that. Um, and because I don't make my living in that arena, I didn't have to lean into it. So as soon as it started getting really rough, I said, oh, this is awful. These people are awful. And I pulled away. Yeah, James, he passed away for sure. It's been confirmed, multiple sources, Associated Press, Megyn Kelly Live, and Donald Trump himself confirmed it. And I knew he was, everybody had the jury out. I haven't seen some people shot before. When I saw the shooting, I saw the close up of it. I said, "Oh yeah, you don't look like a 223 round. It looked like something out of a AR-15 type. It looked like a wound of a 223, and looked like it was kind of at a downward angle, and the amount of blood that was immediately evident to me seemed unsurvivable. Reminded me a lot of John Kennedy, that kind of, minus the cranial displacement and all of that. So I have a bunch of people text me and, hey, did you know Charlie? We know I was out in Arizona. Yeah, he's up the road from me. We had his organization had always invited me to do things. I'd been invited to come speak at events, and I had kind of shied away from it because it was a little too evangelical for my style. And they never asked me for any money. Trump has never asked me for any money. Every time, I met Trump, was at a Charlie event where I was invited to the event. Through Don Jr., but then I was invited by Charlie's organization a couple of times. So, I got to meet the, President of the United States several times because of him being here in town, basically being hosted by Charlie. Charlie was a major, major, major force on the American political landscape, and he was making a play for the future. People talk about making a difference all the time, and the guy was making a real difference. If you watched him, he was a little arrogant sounding sometimes. I know he could be abrasive. He was a young guy, and he was cocksure and evangelical, and that's a mix that can rub a lot of people the wrong way. But one thing you'll notice about him when you watch him, he was really kind to people, even when they were just awful. Or he's like, hey, I could tell you're really nervous. Everybody he would quiet down the crowd and say, hey, listen, make your point. It's okay. I've been here. And if people were really, really mean with him, he would push back with intellect. He had a very open and creative and eager mind. He was well-read and very kind of educated, self-educated, like George Washington. He was self-made. I really admired that about him. I don't know what goes on with people being God-fearing men. I don't, it's not part of my personal experience. I don't really know about it, but he was clearly possessed by some desire and love for country. And it's humbling. He must have known he was at risk, although he sat there. It doesn't look like a lot of security. You don't need Secret Service agents to have really good security. All you need is one paranoid, smart ex-Marine, and you'll probably have some pretty decent security. But I know a lot of people reaching out to me and trying to make sense of it all, and there's no sense to be made. If you want to put a nice little, kind of tidy bow on it, you could be, oh, the Lord called him home. It doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't hold us accountable. The Lord didn't call him home. He was sent home by a million lies that propagandize the weakest people in our nation. And what's sad is this is going to go on, and this isn't the end of it. And Trump was the beginning, and he has the best security in the world, and everybody else is at risk. And this is what happens when we let the Marxist left say their stuff. This is what happens when we let the Marxist left propagandize our universities and brainwash the public. This is what happens when we avoid discourse. I think what we need to do in the light of this is there's not anybody like him right now walking around. Everyone needs to pick up the torch and carry it in their own way and be what he was, which is logical, thoughtful, informed, and call it like you see it. He would say, I'm sorry, I know this hurts, but I believe trans is a mental illness, and I want you to get the help, and I pray for you. That was like the meanest thing I've ever heard him say, and it's not mean. It's really factual and compassionate. When we see people doing drugs, destroying their life, we say, you don't say, okay, well, everyone give them room. They had a rough upbringing. Let's make sure they have a lot of drugs. That's not the solution. Oh, they'll figure it out eventually. That's not a solution. We say, hey, this is not wrong. This is not how you live. This doesn't elevate your life. We're not all going to be catering to that. And we call people out. We say, you need to get help. And in the meantime, no, you don't get to be in charge. And we've got a group of people, what's funny is I don't think trans people wanted any of this. I think this was some Marxist co-opting of the trans cause, the trans movement. I think trans people just don't want to be tied up to a bumper and drugged down the road. I think they kind of want to be left alone. But lefties, they take everything and just blow it out of proportion. I don't know what's true anymore, you guys. I honestly don't know. Everything that I thought I knew growing up's turned out to be kind of a lie. And I probably love my country like a Russian loves their country. I think it's super important for everyone to step back and be open to the possibility that they're not right. Me included, I'm always quite open to the possibility I'm not right. And what I do is, here's my opinion, here's what I think, here are the soldiers of my ideas I'm pushing forward into thought battle. What are your thought soldiers? And if you don't have any thought soldiers, then I go, okay, well, for now I'm right, until someone proves me otherwise, or I get information to the contrary. Think about this guy. He's got 2 little kids, and he's basically run a political ministry to organize people. And he's been willing, I've seen time and time again, and I know you guys all have seen it too, he was willing to, he has always been willing to argue or debate politely with anyone. And when people got out of control or got worked up or they got nervous, what I noticed was he always had compassion. He would go, hey, this is an attack on you. And if the crowd got unruly, like against the speaker, he'd say, hey, guys, quiet down. Let them have their say. It's okay. I've been waiting in line. And then the person would go back on their diatribe, and then he would really logically argue with them. And so every now and then somebody would be a really strong argument, and he would go, he would say, good point. I understand your point. I don't agree, but you argued your point well. I think he was a gentleman. And I think he was a little young, cocksure, and overly certain of himself. As you get older, you get less certain in the things you're right about sometimes. You find you realize how little you actually do know. So I think the best thing we can do is learn from the example of humility, learn from the example of openness, learn from the example of being well-read and being informed and educating ourselves, coming from a place of knowledge and logic and reason. And when we hear people castigating others, like how many times have you heard someone called a fascist or a Nazi in the last 10 years? When you start seeing stuff like fascist and Nazi and Hitler, and when you see people being demonized, it creates a crack in our collective soul that allows people whose souls are damaged to niggle their way into those cracks and feel like they're doing a good thing. So, oh, he's a fascist? Well, Hitler was a fascist. I'm going to kill him. There's some crazy leap that happens in there. So I think it behooves us to call out the name calling and the castigation of people that we don't agree with. I mean, if someone calls you a ding-dong right-winger, that's okay. If someone calls you a fucktarded a libtard, that's okay. Like, I don't mean that kind of name calling. It's okay to be passionate and throw some rocks at each other. It really is. It's okay. Democracy's and argument and discourse is messy. It's got to be a little messy. It's okay. But what we can't do is we can't demean it. If you call someone a libtard, say, oh, that's retarded. You're being a that makes no logical sense. That is different than when you demonize and vilify people. And the palpitating lefties out in Hollywood, the palpitating news people who have the worst track record of informing us, they spend a lot of time calling people like Charlie and Donald Trump. They've been calling them, fascists and Hitlers. They spent a lot of time doing that. They spent a lot of time yelling out in front of Congress saying, we're going to take this fight to the streets. Well, when you tell 130 million people on your side, I don't know, 330, so 150. So if you tell 165 million people, take this fight to the streets, we're not taking any more. Maxine Waters, Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, the Squad, Ocasio, Jasmine Crockett. The problem is when you say that kind of stuff, there's a group of people out there who don't take it as rhetorical hyperbole. They take it as a call to action. And all they need to do is lose their job or go off their meds, and all of a sudden it seems a reasonable thing to do. I've been single for, I've been divorced for 5 years. And I had, initially when I got single, I went like on, a dating site, and I wore a shirt that had a Trump election, Trump had some Trump shirt. And I got kicked off the dating site for being offensive. Not for any communication I had with anybody, but it was enough women were set off by the shirt that they got me kicked off the site. So then I went to another site. It was Hinge that I went to. And when I went to Hinge, I posted my pictures, and they basically emailed me and said, you can't have a Trump shirt on in your picture. And in the meantime, I had gone on some dates with women, and what I found out was if they were left of center and they knew I was a Trumper, the dinner was a nightmare and it would spiral really bad. We could be having this wonderful vibing dinner with this good looking gal, and she just thinks you're rugged, handsome, and intelligent, and blah, 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 blah. And I would never bring up the politics because I just don't want to get into it. And I know high percentage of single women are lefty because their feelings of frailty and kind of them against the world kind of feelings that kind of pushed them to the left. I understand that. So I know the space, but if they went there and got that out of me, you could see like a date that was like serious chemistry and like, oh, this is somebody I could, have some future with potentially, as much as you can in a first date, right? And it would immediately be ruined. Now, I didn't care. I'm if the lefty wants to, well, what would happen is they would say, well, I don't know how you could possibly da 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 da. And I would say, well, okay, give me a reason why you wouldn't. They give me a reason. I say, okay, here's my perspective on that. Da, 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 da. And they'd be like, and then they would say about women's rights. And I'd say, okay, well, here's my perspective on that. Da, 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 da. And they would just kind of lose their minds about it. So I got to where, like, if I'm taking somebody to dinner, I don't want to take somebody that one thing is just going to make them hate me. So I literally like will screen anybody I go on a date with. I mean, I'm going on a date with somebody today after work, and it was like when it got to that point where I was like, "Hey, do you want to meet up?" And then, yeah, okay, well, let's go have dinner. Da 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 da. We'll get. And then I say, hey, listen, before we meet, and I waste a moment of your time or mine, does it matter to you who I voted for? And they'll say, absolutely, it matters. And I go, okay, well, it was Trump. And then and then either they will immediately ghost me, or they'll say, fuck you, you scumbag pig. Like I could almost do a book of like text messages leading up to, oh my God, you sound great. This is gonna be so much fun. I can't wait to meet you. Fuck you, you fucking fascist pig. So I literally use it as a screen now. Some guys send dick pics. I ask them if it matters who you voted for. And it's because people are so hostile. Like, I have no problem with Libby girls. I honestly, like, it's below my pay grade to be too worried about it. But they lose their shit about me being a Trumper. And that Trump derangement syndrome is what you see going, is we're going to find out that is at the core of what was going on with the people who hate Charlie Kirk. I had never been called a racist. I had never been called all sorts of things. But when I became pro-Trump, I was vilified by a lot of people. And it was almost like they could cut me. They couldn't get to Trump, but they could cut me. So it was like, well, they're going to cut Trump by proxy through me. You know what I mean? And I'm talking about this not relating everything to me, but all of these things that happen in our lives relate to us. And what I see has happened to Charlie today. It's heartbreaking. My daughter called me up, and I was too choked up to talk about it. Because she had seen Charlie talk, and she was very, she could connect because they were close in age. My daughter called me up upset about it today. And I've known about it since the minute it happened. And I hadn't had a tear about it. I was just upset. Humanity is kind of messy, but when you see people, the random violence like happened in Charlotte, there's a lot of people that don't get their due. And that's kind of life. But when you see the brightest amongst us cut down for their ideas, it's just awful. And the last time I was at Blade Show, I always walked up and down the line out in front of Blade Show to shake people's hands, and I tried to make a point of saying hello to everybody. And I noticed the last time that I went, 15 years ago on a Blade Show, the last time I went, I've probably had, in all these years, 5 people not want to shake my hand. And no problem. I don't want to shake strangers' hands when they come up to me either. So I was like, yeah, no problem. But I had somebody really get worked up and really hostile. And I was giving out some free stuff. And a lot of guys asked to take pictures with me, and they have their knives out when they do it. And I had this strange vision about standing there taking a picture with somebody, and they just go kung, 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 just sewing machine me in the neck with a pocket knife. And I was like, I think I'm done doing this. Yeah. Done going out in public and taking pictures and shaking everybody's hand. And I felt really exposed, and I felt really vulnerable. And I'm okay emotionally being vulnerable. I'm okay physically being vulnerable, but to feel that vulnerable, I was like, oh. And the guy he wasn't just like, hey, I don't want to shake your hand, man. I don't like your politics, which is really weird, because if Ocasio-Cortez walked up to me and said, hey, do you know who I am? I'd like to talk. I saw your podcast, and I think you're wrong, but I want to talk to you. I'd say, yes, ma'am. Lovely to meet you. I think you're batshit crazy, but I'd say it with a smile and twinkle in my eye, and she'd go, I know you do. Let's talk. And if someone has the courage to do that, I really admire people reaching across the aisle from different perspectives. I've had a lot of you over the years reach out. Greg, I love your knives. I hate your politics. And then, Greg, I love your knives, and I don't agree with your politics, but I get why you think that way. And then, Greg, I thought you were an asshole forever, and something's changed, and I'm starting to agree with you more. I've seen that trajectory. If you guys had any idea how many times, thousands of times. You guys know my phone number is out there. People text me and reach out to me. And when they have an epiphany, or they have a shift, or something I've said's rocked their boat a little bit, they're able to reach out to me. So they do, And I stopped going to Blade because I told everybody it was because it financially didn't make sense anymore. And that was partially true. And the other reason was I was feeling like people were like more hostile than ever, and I was really vulnerable, and I didn't have the crew around me that made me feel safe. And I said, I'm gonna quit. I'm not going anymore. And I haven't gone and even walked the shows because I feel like somebody would just come up and, because people obsess about stuff online and they get really worked up about it. And, when you guys see me most of the time, not you guys so much, but interlopers, I'm having a private moment with you guys. There's only 114 of you in here watching this, and maybe 1,000 people will see this. That's a pretty small It's like a high school auditorium. We're all just sitting around talking. And you guys throw your ideas and I respond to stuff and just tell you about kind of what's going on with me. And I have felt like I have met one too many right on the edge, not quite there people. And I was like, oh, okay, I might get stabbed by somebody, or they might just take a gut shoot me, So you notice it's been a while. I haven't said anything political. I kind of backed off a little bit. Trying to focus on my company and my team and people around me, my son, who I have more than ever. I think about Charlie and those little girls and that lovely wife of his not having their husband and their dad. It's pretty awful. All that guy did was politely debate anybody. That's all he did. I've seen comments about couldn't have happened to a bigger scumbag. All these horrible things said. And it was just awful. If you hate his politics, you should say, what a goddamn shame. He was a vocal American who drew out good debate. Because a good conservative debater brings out good liberal debate. And if a good liberal idea can be shown to people, that's good. And if good ideas are good. I had a breakup with somebody, and they told me, my whole family hates you now. And their whole family loved me before that. My whole family hates you now. And I go, what? Because I broke up with the person. And I was thinking to myself, gosh, my whole family has nothing but compassion, and I'm sorry it didn't work out. She seemed like a lovely woman and hope she's doing well. That's what my family thought, because that's my perspective. And she had said, oh, my whole family hates you now. And I'm like, well, what are you telling them? And so that's what's going on out there is, people don't want to be accountable. They don't want to feel pain. They don't want to feel embarrassment. They don't want to feel shame. They don't want to have any of these emotions. They want everything to be the most amazing all the time. The truth is, we have to experience bad, and we have to experience low, and we have to experience rejection, so that when we experience good and great and acceptance and love and joy, we've got some goddamn reference point. If everything's just great all the time and everything goes your way and everybody kisses your ass, how do you know when anything's truly good? Charlie was in your face, and he was a gentleman. He just was. He was a little smarmy sometimes, but he was a gentleman. I never saw him be cruel to people when people came up and they were either nervous or had bad arguments. Do you know what he would say? He wouldn't say this is war. He would say, it's been war forever. He would say, pick up the torch, keep the message, pay the message forward. He would say, keep speaking the truth. I'm not going to call women men. I'm not going to call men women. I'm not going to have men in the women's room. I'm not going to say that uh, enemies are friends and friends are enemies. I'm going to call it like I see it. I think one of the most important things that all of us could take away from this, you know, he was a 31-year-old man, and he made a bigger dent than most people ever will on their tribe or their humanity, with their humanity. He made a big dent. He got a big life in 31 years. Could we have gotten more from him? Yes. But his time has ended, and his mission was really, really thoughtful and successful and amazing. And what's going to happen is, because I've been around those folks, is they've got a good, smart, intelligent team, and that movement's going to go forward without him. Just like America went forward without George Washington. Just like the MAGA movement went forward even when Trump didn't get elected. And I believe the MAGA movement's going to go forward after Trump's no longer president. And I think what's really important for those of you who agreed with Charlie's perspective is that we stay engaged. And it's important. You know what he had? Maybe it was dumb, but he had courage. It takes courage. I guarantee you he had more death threats than the president, because it's not illegal to threaten a pastor. It's not illegal to threaten it's kind of illegal, but you won't get the Secret Service rolling up on your house if you threaten some dude. I mean, when people threaten to kill me, nobody gets worked up about it. But when you threaten a president, you get in trouble for that. I think he's probably had more threats than anybody walking. I think he knew how risky what he did was. I think I don't know what his level of security was. It clearly wasn't good enough. I think we're going to find out it was somebody on a roof. It was an AR-15. It was inside of 200 yards, inside of 250 yards. It's kind of what it looked like to me. And I think as we find all of that out, everyone's going to Monday morning quarterback what coulda, shoulda, woulda. But at the end of the day, he knew people were out to get him. And he went out there on the mission. And his mission was for America, and his mission, and he was also, obviously Christian. It is sad to see people who speak such common sense truth be hated so much. Polar Patriot, where are you getting that 5.56 at 175 yards? Is that what they're saying right now? Because I watched the video and basically went out, did some work in the factory. My phone blew up with a couple hundred texts, and I thought I would come in here and shoot a video real quick. I've seen people shot with a 223. That's what it looked like to me, and it looked like inside of a couple hundred yards. I mean, it was a really, really like dead-on kill shot. And when I saw the shot, I said, I walked out and I said, hey, guys, no, it's a guess. Okay. All right, cool. I walked out to the guys and I said, hey, guys, because a lot of conservatives around here. I said, Charlie Kirk got shot. And everyone said, is he okay? And I said, oh, I think he's expired for sure. And the news was still saying he was at the hospital. And then when I was watching Megyn Kelly live just before I got on, she had said she's got a lot of inside people in that camp. And then obviously Turning Point USA, they made their announcement that he was killed. And so we know that's not rumor at this point. And then the police were saying that the gentleman initially, initially the guy, they arrested the old guy with the white hair. That guy was let go. It was not him. So we're going to find out what happened. And regardless, I would do what we do as Americans, which is lean into it, lean into saying the truth. You know, I've been saying the truth for a long time, and there was a 5 year period where it was really bad. I don't know. That doesn't look like a 308 to me, Mystery Stumpy. If it is a 308, but it doesn't look like a 308's big nasty some bitch. It looked to me like a 223, high energy, real fast round, very small. Um, as Americans, what we're supposed to do right now is be reflective. And when I got on live, the suspect was at large, and I don't know if they've figured out. There's a lot of cameras going. They're going to find out who it is. Trust me, it's Utah. They'll figure it out. Uh, when this kind of thing happens, you take a little pause, and we need to really start calling out the awful vilifying of the people from the other side. Um, it's okay to say the other side's wrong. It's okay to say they're stupid. It's okay to say they're not thinking about it right. It's okay to say their argument is not logical. Um, it's okay to say you vehemently disagree with them. When you start saying they're not American, when you start saying these people don't deserve the rights that they're protected by, when you start saying they're fascists, when you start saying they're going to destroy our country, they are, or that's the end of our country, it inflames people. And it's important that we're responsible about not inflaming people, especially when you have a big voice. And the news media has a dwindling but big voice. I think you should all take note of everybody who is celebrating. And everybody who is celebrating is someone that you should steer clear of in your life. And if your impulse is to celebrate the death of a young American from the opposite side of the political aisle who was comfortable to debate everyone, was always courteous, was a gentleman even when sometimes he was a little snarky, and a man of faith, and a father, anybody who's rejoicing in his death or celebrating it or saying he deserved it or good for him, these are people you need to look out for. Sigmund Freud said, look out for people who seem too perfect. For inside they are full of demons. Conversely, those who appear very rough to you are the most straightforward and best people to be around. I would encourage all of you to be a little more raw with the truth. Be kind. Call it like you see it. And don't budge an inch. I also think you should carry a firearm with you at all times. You should be well practiced. If anybody gets out of line with a firearm, you ought to drop them before they pull the trigger the first time. That's just me. I think it's trust but verify. That's my perspective on life. Trust but verify. Thanks for stopping in for a minute to chat with me. I appreciate your comments. You know, everybody that conservatives listen to, Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, Donald Trump. If you're a lefty, you know, one of your big heroes is Gavin Newsom, who's a screwball. But, you know, he got his talk show going. The first person he has on is Charlie Kirk. Why? Because he knew Charlie Kirk was going to be a gentleman. He knew he would bring good discourse. He knew he wouldn't be unhinged, and he knew it would be a good show. And it wasn't firebrandy at all. It was really lovely and respectful. I think we should all try and follow that, because you know what? They can't shoot us all. They can't shoot us all. Pretty sad. Thanks for stopping. I'll see you guys around the campus.